I've been part of the Benjamin Stephenson project since the initiation of the project, when at the time that Evelyn Bowles offered the Historic Preservation Commission in Edwardsville. At the time, I was under the directorship of Karen Matika, money to pick up projects around Edwardsville that needed to be worked on, and she elected to choose the Benjamin Stephenson House as her project. Well, the criteria seemed to be historic projects that were of great interest but weren't getting funding from any place else. So Karen indicated that she wanted the Stephenson House to be considered, and also the restoration of brick streets in Edwardsville. The Stephenson House was already on the National Register and was in need of restoration, so we were granted $500,000 from the state, and that gave us kind of seed money to get going on the project. And it was an elaborate project. We needed to have an historical architect. That person then drew up the plans for the restoration. The house had been considerably altered on the interior. The stairwell had been reversed, and some things like that had happened. But basically, aside from extensive termite damage, the house was in reasonably good shape. It was mostly getting the interior back to where it had been in the 1820s. The other thing that was important was the fact that we had to establish what colors were in the house originally. All the walls and the trim were subjected to paint analysis, and the colors that you see on the walls today are colors that were the result of the color analysis that we had done when we first began to repair the house. I don't think many of us would have a kind of a salmon color wall and kind of a tealy blue fireplace, but they were that was the aesthetic of the day, so we needed somebody who was knowledgeable so that we would not be imposing our aesthetic on a house that was built in 1820. So aside from the architect and the paint analysis, we then had to find people who could repair it, who were knowledgeable in the building techniques that were extant in 1820. One of the interesting things about the house was the fact that a fraternity lived here at the time of the sale, and everybody was cringing about what they thought possibly the frat boys had done to the house. But in point of fact, they had kept a good roof on the place, and they had good windows on the house, and there was very little damage done. Most of the woodwork that you see is the original woodwork in the house. Well, there were originally 4 rooms to the house. All the woodwork was made by a young fellow named Daniel Tolman. Daniel Tolman's house is still standing in Edwardsville on North Main Street, and it's for sale. It's kind of a shame we can't acquire that to be kind of part of a Stephenson package. The furniture is kind of interesting. It's a collection of period furniture and reproduction furniture. Most of the upholstered pieces are reproductions of period pieces, and most of the wood pieces are period pieces that we acquired mostly through donation and fundraising. And we based the pieces that we acquired on an inventory that was taken after Stephenson died. He died intestate, so they had to sell off most of his belongings, which is sad because we didn't end up with any Stephenson family pieces, but it did give us a list of what the Stephensons owned and what was in the house, so that when we were acquiring pieces of furniture to put in the house, the inventory gave us a reasonably good idea of what we needed to purchase in order to furnish the house in what we hope represents the house in a way that it would have been furnished when the Stephensons lived here. There were a number of hurdles, fairly substantial hurdles that had to be overcome. There was a gas station on part of the property, which gasoline tank mitigation is a big, big deal, and that was a very expensive thing that we had to overcome. And then the other big project that we had great difficulty with was getting the white paint off the house. The house had been painted white for many, many years.
Benjamin Stephenson was a very close friend of Ninian Edwards, the territorial governor. And Stephenson before he came here, was the sheriff of Randolph County in Kaskaskia. He also was the receiver of public money in the land office. And the land office, what started here in Edwardsville in 1860, was the biggest selling land office in the United States in the first 2 or 3 years. So Stephenson was an extremely important early resident of Madison County and Illinois. And this is one of the only 4 or 5 houses of that period still extant in Edwardsville, brick houses. So it's an extremely important house, both historically and architecturally.
There was a great base group, the Friends, that started this, and they're all magnificent and magical in their own ways. But something clicked with Karen, and I think the way she drew people in with the stories and dropping a little bit of information here and there, and then you had to follow up with it, and the brilliance of the articles that Henry the Mouse had in the newspaper. That was a great way to teach people, give them a base for what was happening here at the house in modern times, and introducing people, the community, slowly to who the Stephensons were, who the Edwards were, who some of the other prominent players in Edwardsville were, how Edwardsville was more of the commerce and financial center versus, Vandalia or any place else in the state.
When I was first involved with the house, it was not so fully fleshed out as we see today. The first group of board of directors was working to finish the restoration and do the furnishings. Roxanne and I have talked recently about how long we've known each other and how far the house has come. It's a joy to see it still so vibrant, and I credit its commitment to the community with community events and its involvement with the school systems for doing that.
We have tours, we have special events, we have fundraising events, and one of the activities that we involve the community in are our summer camps for children. They've been very, very popular. The Miss Lucy's camps, the kids, it's really kind of remarkable. The kids age out and then they want us to have another session that's for kids their age. So we have Miss Lucy's camps, and then we have sort of graduate schools. Our big winter event is our Christmas candlelight tour, which is, I think, shows the house at its best because it's illuminated just by fireplace and candlelight, which gives the ambiance of what the house would be really experiencing the house in 1820.
As a volunteer and as the assistant director, I worked especially with the wardrobe for the people who come and volunteer at the house. I was wardrobe mistress for several years and worked on assembling a body of clothing that people could use to be more historically accurate when they dress and speak about the house to the public.
One of the things I like about our site is that we have the ability to speak to people's individual interests and in a language that they understand and that they can be very interactive. We don't have the red ropes and the standard talk. If you interrupt us and ask a question, we're not going to lose our place and have to start from the beginning. And I think all the people that I've learned from, and every time you see somebody give a tour in a slightly different way, it opens your eyes to something else that could help somebody understand.
I love the kitchen. It's not in the house, but it's by the house. I've taken some photographs in there, and it's just cozy.
The children's bedroom is like real life. The parlor's pretty, and the dining room is very practical, and the parents' bedroom very curated, very nice. And then the children's bedroom is like, when we display clothes on the beds and things, it looks like the kids have just run out or just plopped their stuff down. You try to imagine what kids that age would have been doing and how they differ from kids today.
I wish we could actually get some more property. I don't know which way we could go. Get some more property and have some kind of a facility where we could have events, because it would kind of relieve the fundraising burden if we had some kind of a facility. People love to have weddings in the vicinities of old homes. Ideally, if we could reconstruct Stephenson's barn, which is just out here on the alleyway, I think that would be something that I'm sure would be constantly booked, because that would be a convenient location, lovely setting, and then it would be a modern equipped venue that would have an old look to it, so that I think that would really appeal to people. And as I say, take care of our fundraising that way.